Hi everyone. Going to be a relatively short video. I just wanted to share something I developed this week for a client. Long story short is I was having to process a series of files through Excel. So this is about Excel. And the processing could take some time. So I wanted to be able to demonstrate visually the progress. So in Access, I have a form for that has a progress bar that works marvelously. But I don't have that capability in Excel. I didn't want to start developing a user form and whatnot. And I found a nifty way that you could do it using conditional formatting. And I came up with two similar approaches. And I thought I'd just quickly demonstrate them to you here in case they can be useful for someone. I will have to follow up, however, and write up an article and upload a demoed file. But today I'm at least going to demonstrate the principle. You will see the code, but to avoid you having to retype it, I am going to have to develop a sample and post it on my website. So something to come in the coming days. So let's take a look at these two examples. So I have two samples here just to show both different visual aspects. And I guess the easiest way is let's start at looking at what it is, what it looks like, and then we'll look at the code behind it that actually made it work. So if we just open up the first example, and both sheets are the same, both workbooks are identical, same content, it's only the visual display that's going to change. And what the code does is it's going to go through all the rows and it's going to delete all the gender F. So it's going to delete all the female entries and only leave me with the males. It's just for demonstration purposes. There are much easier ways of doing this, but I needed something that was iterative, that would show a progression, and this works really well. And this concept can be used for anything that's iterative or anything that has multiple steps and that you can quantify basically a percentage of progression. So let's just look at it. Enough talk. You just press on the process data and you'll see on J4, I believe it is, you'll get a progress bar. Now the range per se can be changed in one location in the code. So it doesn't have to be J4. It obviously can be any cell of your choosing. But just look as it's going to go through iterating over all the rows, you're going to see the progression happen. And notice the color. It starts off red, and then it's slowly going over to orange. And then it's going to slowly go to yellow, and then green, and it's going to get a darker and darker green as it finishes up. Okay? So that's the first example. Now let's look at the second example. So it's the same idea. It's going to go through removing all the female entries and it's going to put the progression at J. But this time look at the difference visually. Okay? It's the progress bar grows. It's one color, but it slowly grows until it fills the entire cell. So you have a visual and a numeric. You have both. Compared to the other one, it takes the whole cell, but it changes colors as it progresses towards 100. It goes closer and closer to the green. So it's a personal choice as to which one you implement, but I just wanted to demonstrate two different versions. Now, how does this all work? Well, it really isn't rocket science. When you press the button, it calls this guy here. And this guy here is going to call the setup bar data. And once it does that, which is it sets up conditional formatting on the cell that has the progression. And then if you come here and you look, all it does is we find our last row of data, and then it's going to iterate over all the rows, looking for females and deleting that row. And then here I set up, it checks to see if it's divisible of the frequency. I'm not updating the progress bar every single iteration. It's overtaxing the system for no reason. So I set it, I have it here, I have it, it's going to update the progress only every 10 iterations. You could change this to anything. You want it to be every iteration, you switch it to 1. You want it to be every 100th, then you put 100. You just change this constant and it will change the frequency of updating the progress bar. And basically it's just doing a modulus, and when there's no remainder, which means it divided into it properly, well, then it's going to update that progress bar. And the progress bar is controlled by the value in that range. And the range we specified, like I say, once. So I am saying J4, and so it's going to update the value in J4 to a percentage of completion. So what record are we on, what row are we on now versus the total number gives us our percentage completed, and the progress automatically, because of conditional formatting, changes to represent that new value. So basically, as we're iterating here, we're continuously updating the value in that cell. And the minute you update the value in that cell, the conditional formatting takes care of everything else and changes the display, the color, the width of the bar, whatever the case may be, depending on which option you choose. So this is all pretty simple. And I have a simple subroutine here that does the initial setup. And the initial setup is very simple. I'm just initiating the value to be 0 because we're just starting the process, so we're at 0% completed. I'm setting a width. I chose 65. You can change it to whatever width you want that cell to be, bigger, smaller, up to you. And then I'm checking here to see if there's already conditional formatting on the range. Now, what range? Well, we pass it the range that we defined here, range J4. So it's using the range here, and it uses the range later on. So that's why I'm saying it's set up in one location. So you only have one spot to change in the code, and everything just falls into place. And then you have the 2 bits of code. So I'll uncomment it so you can see it a little clearer. So if you just want the case, the first case, which was a gradient background, so it goes from one color through to another, but it doesn't really grow. The bar doesn't grow. It just changes colors over time. Well, then you'd use this top one, okay, gradient background. And right now I have it set with 3 variations, so it goes from red to orange to green. And it's just set here, like I say, you set 3 variations, and here you go, criteria 1, criteria 2, criteria 3, and I'm changing the color here, I'm changing the color here, and then it's not a color, I'm using a theme color for the last one. So that's how hard it is to set up. It's very simple. If you want to do the bar data, which grows but is one color, well, then this would be the code you'd be implementing. And it's very simple once again. You're adding a data bar, and then you set here a minimum and a maximum, which will, in our case, we're talking percentage, so it's always going to be from 0 to 1. But if you have other applications, you could always change that. And then I'm just here specifying what color I want that bar to be as it grows. So I'm using the green, the same green that I actually used up here. And the rest is invariable. I don't even play with this, but you can see here it's solid fill, etc., etc. And then lastly, I format that cell a little bit more. The value that I'm passing to it, the value that we pass here, so it's the percentage, well, that's exactly it. I want it to be set up as a percentage. I'm setting it up that it has 2 decimals. I'm setting it up so it's centered in the cell rather than left or right justified, and just ensuring that the vertical alignment and that it's bold. That's it. Basically, everything is really controlled here as far as visual is concerned. And this does the math that updates that visual. So they work hand in hand. When you press the button, it does that initial setup. And by validating here, if there's already conditional formatting, we're only going to do it once. And then after that, it just iterates, and just keeps updating the percentage. Therefore, the progress bar or the data bar or whatever you want to call it will reflect whatever the new percentage is based on what choice you made up here, whether you're doing the data bar or the gradient background. And that is it. So with basically 2 procedures, 2 subs, I'm able now to give my users a visual display of the progression of any task I want. In my case, I was actually using one Excel workbook to do work on a secondary one. So I had my progress bar in the main one that had all the coding, and that stayed on top while the secondary workbook was being edited, shall we say, and you could slowly see the progress bar grow and the percentage displayed. So now my users because the task was a lengthy one, no longer thought that the workbook had frozen or something. Now they have a visual representation saying, oh, no, it's doing what it needs to do. It's a long process. I should also mention, with regards to long processes and things like that, adding a do event is critical if you want that visual to be updated properly. And it also releases it that if need be, you can break into the code and other things of that nature. So this do event here is very important in the entire process. So I hope this is something you guys haven't seen before, something potentially useful that you can implement into some of your workbooks and give your users that visual aid. Thank you for your time. We'll see you in the next video. Please, if you don't mind, like, subscribe, drop me a line below. Have you done this before? Do you prefer to use a user form, a pop-up user form as an overlay on top of something like this instead of dirtying a cell in your worksheet? Let me know. And thank you for your time. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you in the next video.